Welcome to today's video from this channel. I am glad that you're here with me, and I'm kind of exploring today the topic of narcissism, and I'm going to start off by just making the statement that there is no such thing as a narcissist. And I'm going to explain a little bit what I mean by that. If you look on YouTube today, there are lots of videos on the topic of narcissism and, really giving a very strong perception or perspective of narcissism that is based on duality. So it's like, how to outwin or outsmart a narcissist, for example. So in definition, we are actually labeling people as a narcissist. And I'm going to show you today how that just really isn't true. So I'm just sharing a little bit of a different perspective. So I'm glad you're here, and just, bear with me, have a listen, take what resonates and leave the rest. But it's just something for you to chew over, slightly different viewpoint based on my own experience and perception. So basically, I've entitled the video, Love is the Healer of Narcissism, and no such thing as a narcissist. And the reason why I say that is because when we label somebody as a narcissist or as a evil person or whatever it is, we're already judging them based on our own perception of duality. So basically, if you're familiar with non-duality, or self-realization is the act of unity and the realization that we are all one. So basically, we all come from source into this physical world to have a physical experience, and there's no separation because we all come from that one source, basically. So when we wake up or we experience more self-realization, we wake up to our commonality as human beings. We're waking up to humanity and being part of something that's bigger than just a single idea of me or a person-centered based consciousness. So we open ourselves up to the whole scope of unity consciousness, and that's where we're kind of moving into at this time on the planet. We're moving into more unity consciousness and moving away from a self-centered universe, basically, or perception of reality. So when I say no such thing as a narcissist, it's because it's when we label somebody, we're already in a state of judgment. So accusations and judgments are all based on duality, and basically that's not love, which I'm sure you can probably resonate with that. Is it loving to judge somebody, to label somebody, to say that they are this, and create even more separation, create even more distance between us as human to human? And basically it's said that every relationship that we have in our lives is a representation or a reflection of our own beingness. So we attract other beings to us for the lessons that we need ourselves, to show us something, to mirror something to us. And quite often this is what creates these personality clashes, is if we're very identified with an ego, a personality, if we haven't developed our own spiritual maturity, then our ego will clash with another being that's also in an ego state. But when we're coming from a place of unity consciousness, and we've developed enough and we've suffered enough and we've woken up to the fact that, you know what, I am actually one. I can feel the totality. I can feel the energy that I am, part of this whole, and that other people are mirroring back to me aspects of myself, and that we are all one. We are here to co-create on earth a society that is going to be more loving, that is going to be more open-hearted, and not be based in this just me existence, and that is going to be embracing the allness, the oneness, the unity of all things. Okay, So that's just a little bit of a background of why I'm saying that there's no such thing as a narcissist, because we're labeling, we're judging, we're projecting onto another human being that's here to experience life, that's on a journey, that's on a path of self-realization, that's on an awakening journey, that's learning lessons through trial and error. You know, we've all made mistakes. We've all been, you know, the idiot. You know, we've all been, I say that because nobody's an idiot, but, you know, we've all behaved in ways that are characteristic of being a complete, you know, a-hole, you know, so without, you know, using that word. But, you know, so forgiveness is a requirement as well. But when we're coming from this aspect of unity consciousness, and then when other people, you know, fuck up or whatever, screw up, sorry to swear, you know, there's a sense of, you know, I've done that, or I've been there. You know, we're just here learning, and we're always making progress. So when we understand that, it doesn't matter what anybody else out here does, really, because they're meant to do what they're meant to do, to experience the lessons that they're meant to experience. And we are not in a place to judge that whatsoever, because they are in an agreement with their higher self, with their soul's blueprint for this lifetime and journey, and what they're here to evolve and learn, as we all are. So when we realize that that is what unifies us all, that's what makes us, you know, experience the commonality of being human in this world, then getting rid of judgment is just a natural part of that. Because would we like people to be judging us, you know, when we make mistakes, or when we behave in ways that might just spontaneously come up in the moment because of the energy interplay with other people? But it's an expression in that moment. And sometimes we're not always in control of that. You know, sometimes it just is spontaneous and comes out of us. And then later on we go off and say, I can't believe I said that, or I can't believe I did that. So, you know, we're all in that process of learning, you know, behaving, acting, interacting with one another, and experiencing what it means to have these different dynamics, you know, various dynamics with individuals that further progress our own evolution. Okay, so moving on. So judgments and accusations are not based on love, you know. So if we're going to be more open-hearted ourselves, more loving, then we have to be compassionate. We have to learn to be more compassionate, which we are innately anyway when we're in alignment with who we are. So the work is not about trying to condemn somebody out here for their behavior. The work is, what is this showing me about me? Am I judging? You know, do I have aspects of that behavior? What can I learn from the interchange, the interaction? So then we can appreciate every single human being that we come into contact with, because we realize that it's about learning and evolution. So there's going to be no judgment. So we come from a place of compassion and appreciation for the lessons that each individual's bringing into our life. You know, there's no judgment in that. So moving on to just the narcissism itself, and you know, discovering or understanding the root cause of behavior, because quite often people or ourselves behave in a certain way, but if we can understand, well, where did that come from? You know, where did that behavior come from? Was there an agenda that's based on ego, control, you know, lack of self-worth, comparison? You know, there's all these different behaviors that go on that have been programmed and learned by us, because basically we all want to feel accepted, all want to feel loved, and, you know, all want to feel safe, and basically, you know, live in a way that expresses that with one another. So first of all, narcissism, it's a learned behavior. And when I'm using that word narcissism, I'm using that to describe the behavior, not the person. Okay, so getting away from the narcissist, you know, because that's so dead. It's like very, you know, narcissist, you know, it's like we're labeling, we're judging. So we're getting away from that, and we're looking at the act of narcissism itself. Narcissism is a learned behavior. Why is it a learned behavior? Where does it come from? So this is just my perspective of it. You can disagree, if take what resonates. So my feeling is that it is rooted in a distorted love, some sort of distortion around love. So for example, it could have come from an action and reward behavior from the parents. So for example, if you didn't feel like you were just fully loved and accepted for being who you are, but you had to kind of accomplish something or do something in order to get that love and attention from a parent. So it can come from that kind of conditioning. So then the adult feels that, you know, I need to do this or that in order to receive the love and attention and appreciation from others in society. So it may be very materially focused in trying to prove itself by doing this, that, and that, when actually it's based on a lack of self-worth fundamentally. So lack of self-love and respect for self, for, you know, that love wasn't the foundation as they were growing up, as we were growing up. So it's like, and we can all relate to some of this, because most of us have had some of this in our conditioning, and our parents were only doing their best based on their parents' conditioning. But it's more to do with how society shapes the human being in general. So it's society's expectations, you know, when we're living in a world that puts a lot of emphasis on material gain, success, ideas of success, a lot of that becomes embedded in the family, and then we have these expectations of ourselves that if we don't fulfill them, then it results in self-judgment, or we feel that we're being judged. It could come from a parent or siblings, or, you know, and it can also start in school as well. So so basically this action and reward conditioning from a parent or even lover. So maybe relationships that have not gone very well, or that you've been judged because you haven't lived up to the expectation of your partner and what they had in mind for the relationship. Sorry, it's just so funny to me. So it's like, you know, they want you to be a certain way, and you know, you weren't able to fulfill that expectation for them, and so there was judgment, and then you go away with your tail between your legs, hurt from that relationship because you really loved that person, and that creates a kind of conditioning or a certain amount of trauma as well, based on the person who's feeling or judging themselves based on what's happened to them. But nothing can actually ever happens to you, because you are beyond all conditions, you are beyond all appearances, you are more than the person that you've known yourself to be based on society's conditioning, based on society's programming. So, but that's another video, okay? So action and reward conditioning from a parent and lover, trauma and hurt or loss that can come again from a spouse that didn't return or reciprocate that love that you had for them. Maybe you were all loving, all giving, and it wasn't received, it wasn't acknowledged, and it wasn't reciprocated. So sometimes that can result in wounding, that when the person leaves these relationships, they're going to be more guarded. You know, they're going to be more guarded and afraid to show who they really are, you know, which was that sensitive, loving being. But they're afraid to show that again because there's a fear of getting hurt. And so they can put up the persona of a kind of false sense of security, but they're not really secure. So we have to come back to unconditional love for healing these behaviors of narcissism. So only love is the healer. Whether that's from other people, but fundamentally you have to heal it within yourself first. We're all responsible for healing our own wounds, our own past trauma, all these things that are going to help us evolve into, really understanding where the behavior comes from and undermining it and releasing it into pure love, pure unconditional love. Is that not what we all want? To be completely accepted for who we are, but we have to mine for it within ourselves first. It's our own acres of diamonds. We have to mine for that gold within ourselves first, which is the recognition of our own divinity. And then we can express that unconditional love. And then we realize that we're all one. So if everyone kind of took on that and did that for themselves, the expression of love in the world will be that much more. It will just overflow, because everyone's cup is overflowing with love. It's not based on hurt or self-protection, ego protection. It's based on pure transparency of, I recognize the one in you because I know myself also to be the one. So it's recognizing your own divinity. That's what the word namaste means. I honor the divine in you. And then they say it back to you. So it's recognizing and honoring the divine in ourselves that actually heals. And even with who we come into contact, if we come into contact with people from that state of consciousness, then we're already going to have an overflowing energy of love that is going to naturally, heal them through our vibration. So it's our healing, loving vibration, our loving vibration that heals ourselves, but also others. So that's looking at the root of where it can come from. Power games to do with being in school, trying to fit in, so if there was a group or a gang of people in school that were bullying other people in school that were seen as weaker or whatever, so they were getting picked on. So so first of all, narcissism can come from the bullies, but it can also come from that the underdog, but it's more likely to be from the bullies, the ones that were getting that sense of power from making other people feel small and bad about themselves. And so this learned behavior, because then they fit in with the other bullies that consolidate that type of behavior, and they think that means success, that means power. But also the one that was the underdog, the person that was the victim, if they also develop that victim consciousness mentality, they can also grow up feeling the victim, and then they will assert whatever, they will try to manipulate people and situations in order to try and feel a little bit better, because they're in victimhood, because they're in that lack, because they feel frustrated and in that lack of love. Then they're going to try and assert their influence over other people or situations in their life to try and rise up. But again, love is the healer. Love is the healer of any sense of lack of self-worth or self-esteem. Love is the healer of the sense of lack. I'll say that again. So love is the healer of lack of love, lack of self-esteem, no matter how that manifested for any of us in our lives. So that's the schooling influence, that sense of needing to control. And then that can result in power games in the corporate world or wherever it's going to manifest. When the adult grows up, they might get into, a political position, because that's how they're getting their sense of power. So they might take on a very kind of significant role in the world in order to assert that power and influence. But really there's still that little boy or that little girl that's still on that power trip, trying to feel good about themselves. okay, and doing what they can to feel good about themselves. But once you realize that you have absolutely nothing to prove to anyone on this planet, you have nothing to prove to anyone, not even yourself. You don't have anything to prove to yourself. You just are. That is enough. That is your worthiness. That is your sense of being, your aliveness, the fact that you exist, the fact that you got here, the fact that you are here, the fact that you came here and took a physical body, you incarnated here, you agreed to suffer, you agreed to have heartbreak, you know, that, you know, you are worthy. You are willing to go through all that in order to wake up and come into that more expansive state of unity consciousness, that self-acceptance, that self-love, that unconditional love for you as a being, as an expression of the one, as an expression of the divine here on this planet, and the acknowledgement of all being the same thing. There's no separation, there's no duality in that. So therefore, narcissism doesn't exist. So lack of self-love and respect. So this is what we're healing. We're healing these old wounds, the trauma, the distorted, basically anything that's around distorted love, distorted self-love, the sense of lack, victimhood. So we're healing victimhood, trauma, the idea of not being loved, not being good enough, having to prove yourself in order to get your parental attention, love, attraction, a relationship partner to love you. It was like all these things you need to do to prove yourself, when all you need to do is be. You don't need to do all these things. You just be. Be now, be love, be here, be present. Isn't that sometimes what we find in relationships is one of the biggest downfalls, is just people want someone to be receptive, to be listening to them, to actually just be present. You know, presence goes a long way. Presence is love. The ability to be present and share your presence, your beingness with another is love, is unity. So the healer of narcissism is unconditional love, and especially unconditional self-love initially. So unconditional self-love, focusing on your own healing, nurturing yourself, giving that love to yourself. And when I say self, I don't mean like the ego self. I mean just fully, you know, love the child within, the inner child within, love who you are, love your essence, connect with your essence, connect with your divinity, connect with your connection to your divinity. Connect with your connection to divinity. Doesn't make sense, right? But you know what I mean. So meditate, breathe, look after yourself, because no one else can do that for you. No one else can heal you. No one else can heal you of any of these behaviors or judgments. Only you can heal your judgments of narcissistic behavior. If you are kind of very close to this non-dual based love, get rid of that last judgment of anybody. You're not a victim. You never were a victim. Okay, I feel to leave it there, and I hope you've enjoyed this video and that it's shed some light for you in whatever way that's been. Please feel free to comment and give me your feedback. I'd love to hear it. And I'm just sending you all so much love and light, and namaste.